Coming to you live from the Rockstar Studios in Ames, Iowa. You are now listening to Locked In with Coach RB. We're your one-stop shop for all things related to coaching college basketball.
Hello everybody, I'm your host Randy Brown, and today we have a very special episode for you. I'm excited to dive into this, but first, a brief message from our sponsor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Make sure to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Well, welcome to Locked In with Coach RB, and we have got a longtime friend, a young man at one time who approached me and wanted to know how to become a college basketball coach. I don't know why he ever came up to me, but he did. And I'm glad he did because I'm really, really proud of this once young guy who's not that same young guy. He's a lot smarter than he was that day. But this is Andy Fox. Andy Fox now currently at Vanderbilt, but has a really interesting path in college coaching. And I remember telling him the day that we walked up those steps, I think at Dowling High School, and we had a conversation about what to expect. And I remember telling him that you can't script your path. You can try like crazy, but you can't script it because there are way too many factors and variables, and you just have to do a really good job of positioning yourself with good people, and great things will happen. And that's what's happened with you. So, Andy, welcome to the podcast. And how are things in Nashville?
Things are great, RB, and I really appreciate you having me. And I think, you're so true with your words as far as, I was young and I was green and I thought I wanted to coach and I did, but your messages even then, they still ring true today about relationships and the path is going to take you where the path's going to take you. And just, I remember you had a great line that I always remember just about building relationships. That you always got time to have a beer with somebody. And I've always remembered that. And just, this business is so much about relationships, but so many things we talked about early on. And as I was trying to get into coaching, I get reminders of all the time, and so appreciative of what you do. And thanks again for having me on. And hopefully I can share some stuff. Absolutely, buddy. No, this would be great. We've been able to maintain a long-time relationship, and so that I've really treasured because that's really what it's about. But okay, so you started. I want you to take us, if you would, because I think our listeners who both are college coaches, maybe just basketball fans, and then in particular, the younger coaches, as you were at one time, are very curious as to how one does get started. What's that first job? What's that like? And how do you go from there to the next one? And that. So if you would take us on a little bit of a journey about how you got started, the people you were with. You've been with some tremendous people, which really makes the experience. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. That's everything. So just take us on a little bit of a journey here. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I played Division III basketball at Cornell College in Iowa. And, I started right when I was in high school. I think I knew I wanted to coach. I had an unbelievable high school coach. Randy Norton is his name, and Randy Norton's now currently the head women's coach at UAB. Right. He's having a tremendous amount of success down there. Oh, yeah. Not unexpected based on the type of coach he's been and the person he is, but had a great experience playing for him in high school at Assumption High School in Davenport, Iowa. We won 2 state championships my junior and senior year. I went to Cornell College in Iowa, and I knew I wanted to coach, and played for a gentleman there named Ed Tim. Demanding, brought out the best in me as a player, made me a lot tougher mentally, physically, and started working camps. And that's what people did back
then, and people said, hey, you got to work camps and meet people. And so I started working camps. I worked them all over the Midwest, Michigan's camp and Wisconsin's camp and Illinois' camp. And I went down to Kentucky and Louisville and Augustana, UNI. I mean, I went everywhere. In Snow Valley, many summers of Snow Valley camp with Coach Showalter and Coach Stackhouse and all those great people there. And so just started working, 8 or 10 camps a summer. And, got to, be about my senior year. And I had to do an internship for my graduation at Cornell College. And so I was originally set up to do it at the University of Illinois with Bill Self, kind of the end of my junior year. I had a connection with the operations guy there. And then he leaves and goes to Kansas, so it kind of falls through. And, I end up being able to do the internship at the University of Tennessee, under Buzz Peterson. And the assistant coach at that time was a guy named Ed Conroy, who also went to Davenport Assumption High School. So that was my connection to really get into the Tennessee camps and get in to do the internship. Kind of simultaneous to that is when, we met, RB, and you were, I think at the time, we met at Dowling or Urbandale, one of those two. Right. There was an AAU practice going on, and you were around, and I came up there from Mount Vernon, and we got together and we talked about the journey, and we talked about I remember you asking me what I thought I would make 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and your message was that it's never going to be about what you're going to make.
No.
It's going to be about the relationships and the things you're learning and those type of things. So I thought that was an unbelievable message right away. And then the second thing, and probably the most important thing, we talked about, this is kind of as, I'm about a senior or going into a senior year of college, is you talked about the relationships. And you wanted me to write down everybody that I knew in college basketball, or basketball in general. I shouldn't say college, but you wanted me to write down everybody I knew in basketball. And the exercise was really just to start getting me to think about the network and how I was going to connect with people to get jobs, and how I was going to find out about open jobs and again, springboard that to recruiting later on. But at the same time, I think you wanted me to build a foundation with my network. And you gave me guys like Jeff Rutter and Brian Hagan to connect with via the phone. And those guys took time out of their day to talk to me as a college guy, just about the journey themselves. And I'll always be appreciative of that. So kind of started building that network of people and our relationship, RB. And so I go through my senior year. I really don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to find out about GA spots. And fortunately, that there's the opportunity worked out for me to do my internship at Tennessee in May of 2004 when I was graduating. And I go down there and I'm just working, helping with mail outs, helping with, stuff in the office for about 4 weeks. And simultaneous to that, through you, RB, I get an opportunity to be a GA at Wayne State in Nebraska with Rico Burkett, and Matt Merkin was the other assistant there. And I worked camps with Matt. You had a relationship with Rico, and you graciously connected me with those guys. I interviewed for the job, and I go in the middle of my internship. I go to Wayne to interview, and I get the job, and then I come back to Tennessee, and I'm about to leave, and their current graduate assistant at the time, whose name is Dustin Kearns, who's now the head coach at Appalachian State. Right. Dustin finds out he's probably going to get the Wofford assistant job. So this is like the week I'm leaving. And then, Ed Conroy kind of is like, hey, I'm going to talk to Buzz and I'm going to see what happens. But, there's a chance this thing could work out for you here. So, it was a tough decision, but I leave Tennessee not knowing exactly what's going to happen there. And I go and I move to Wayne, Nebraska. And I'm there for like 1 or 2 weeks. And Ed calls and just says, hey, I got this thing worked out with Buzz. Can you get back down here? And, it was a hard conversation, but it was a great preparation, because that's what you have to do in this business. There's going to be some hard conversations with people you like and people you're gracious for their belief in you, like I was with Rico Burkett at Wayne State. But I told Coach Burkett, I said, hey, I got to go to Tennessee. I just think the opportunity to make contacts there is just going to be just really unbelievable, and I'm going to do that. So I go down to Tennessee. I know that was a long way to get into that story, but I go down to Tennessee, and I'm there, and we have our first year, which isn't great. It was Buzz's last year, and in March, I'll never forget where I was. I was in my apartment And I hadn't even, heard from the staff yet, but I saw on the news, Buzz Peterson relieved of his duties. So of course, you're 22 years old or 23 years old and you're just getting into coaching. You're like, what is going to happen here? You surely didn't have the experience to know kind of how things work, but I'd worked really hard that year. I think I'd made some great impressions on people like John Curry, who's now the AD at Wake Forest, who was our sport administrator, and everybody in the office, the secretaries, they all knew I had value. So Bruce Pearl gets hired, and he comes in and they're just like, hey, can someone bring Coach Pearl over to the hotel? And so I bring Coach Pearl to the hotel, and then I think he starts asking the secretaries like, hey, who's been running camp, or who's been ordering the letterhead for the recruiting mail? And they're just like, Andy does it. So I guess one of the big things that was a takeaway for me at that point, and for young coaches that are getting into those first jobs they have, is just making yourself irreplaceable. But doing it with, obviously respect and chemistry towards the staff. But I was just doing a lot of things. And so when Coach Pearl started asking who does stuff, they were like, oh yeah, Andy does that. And so, I put my head down and during that transition, I just kept doing what I was doing and working really hard. And fortunately, Coach Pearl said, hey, why don't you just stay on and let's see how this thing goes, and kind of ran camps for him that first summer. And then he ends up having an unbelievable first year at the University of Tennessee. Yeah. We end up winning the SEC East, and we beat Florida twice. That was the year they won the national championship with Joakim Noah and Al Horford and Corey Brewer and a great team, but we beat them twice. Beat them when they were undefeated at home. It was unbelievable. Beat Texas at Texas. We had a great year. And we were a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And so just had a phenomenal experience. And then again, kind of like I was in college, you get to that point, and I know there's guys out there like this where that period of, hey, now what do I do? I kind of did the GA. That was like the first step, or that was my foot in the door. But how do I stay in the building? I got my foot in the door. How do I stay in? And I was just really fortunate, simultaneous to kind of me graduating from getting my master's at Tennessee. Ed Conroy, the same assistant coach that hired me at, or helped me get on at Tennessee, he'd been removed for a year. He'd been at Coastal Carolina as an assistant, but he ended up getting the job at the Citadel as the head coach. Right. And, Ed was gracious enough to bring me on as an assistant coach. I was, 23, 24 years old, one of the youngest assistant coaches in the country, but I think he knew how hard I worked, how loyal I was. I was a foxhole guy. I was going to get in the foxhole with him and just grind. And, he was a guy that was extremely detailed and demanding, but nobody's probably shaped my career more. I worked with him, under him for 9 years. I guess worked with him for 10 years if you count the year I was a GA at Tennessee. And nobody's advanced my career probably as much as him. So unbelievably appreciative of that opportunity he gave me. And, he almost, I was young, and he really took care of me and helped me grow as a coach. And so we're at the Citadel for 4 years. We had really good, we turned the program around. We ended up setting the school record for wins. We finished 20 and we won 20 games for the second time in school history. We went 15-5 in the Southern Conference, finished second to Davidson with Steph Curry. They went 18-2. We went 15-5. We beat them at Davidson. So we had an unbelievable run. And based on that success, Ed was able to get the job at Tulane University. And after 4 years at the Citadel, and he was, again, gracious enough to bring me with him as an assistant to Tulane. So we go to Tulane for 5 years. And I guess, my biggest takeaway with the Tulane experience, and I think I would relate this to any young coach out there that is working under a head coach, is, sometimes good coaches don't always find success. And it's not because they're not a good coach. It's not because they're not a great person. Sometimes it's just because you get bad luck, and sometimes you get an injury, or sometimes we changed leagues and we got a new AD, and I thought we were making tremendous progress at Tulane. I think wins and some of the statistics would back it up if you really dug deep. But sometimes people don't see it that way, and that's part of the business, and you got to learn that, especially in the college level. RB, it. A lot of people, experience that and lose jobs at college, and it's just part of it. And you got to, your toughness helps you bounce back. Your experiences, your network, those things got to help you bounce bounce back and keep moving. So I'm at Tulane for 5 years, and I kind of felt like we weren't going to keep getting the support we needed to get that thing flipped. So I left I left Tulane, and I went to Louisiana Tech, which is in Ruston, Louisiana. And Ed Conroy ended up getting fired after the 6th year he was there, but I left after the 5th year. And so I go to Louisiana Tech and work for a really close friend of mine, Eric Conkle, who was also a GA at Tennessee during Buzz's first year, and we'd become great friends. Eric was an assistant at Miami before he got the Louisiana Tech job. We would go recruiting at the same places. We went to Turkey and Bulgaria recruiting together to the FIBA Under-18 championships one summer, and just spent a lot of time with Eric. And he was a guy I respected, I looked up to, but he was also a friend. And he was fortunate enough to bring me to Louisiana Tech with him. And that was a great experience for me at that time, because I was burnt out at Tulane. Mm-hmm. I had dumped 11 years into college and felt like we just couldn't find the success that we needed to really get to the next level. And it was probably my first time in college coaching not being able to get done what we wanted to get done, or not being able to get the program to a sustainable level of success. Mm-hmm. And so I was burnt out, truthfully, and getting a chance to work with, Eric Conkle at Louisiana Tech, and the administration and the staff he put together was a great fit for me at that time. So we ended up going there, or I ended up going there and working there, and we win 20 games 3 of our 4 years. We had some great seasons. We were right on the cusp a couple times of kind of breaking through in the conference tournament. We never could do it, but we had great teams and some really great players, and had a great experience there, great place to live. For a family, as my family started growing. I have 3 kids now, but I had 2 and then had my 3rd when I was at Louisiana Tech. And so wonderful experience there. Coach Conkle is an unbelievable coach. He's got great poise. He's an unbelievable human. He's really well thought out. And I learned a ton from him, just in terms of just how to conduct yourself, how to organize a program, how to have poise at all times. I mean, his temperature never got up. He was able to keep just an even keel about so many things. Right. And I thought that was an unbelievable experience, working for somebody that was just so well thought out and poised, to go along with being a quality person like he is. So I'm in my 4th year at Louisiana Tech, and there wasn't a lot of staff movement at the time that could really, I felt, elevate my career. And I just felt maybe there was another move I needed to make. I wasn't happy there, but just a move to maybe help my career a little bit, expand my resume. And an opportunity came up at Vanderbilt. And I think this is a great story to go along with, why contacts are important, and why you never know where your path will take you. So 2008, when I'm at the Citadel, I'm one of the younger assistants, so I run camp. And one day I look over at the registration table, and there's a really athletic guy with a couple kids at the table, and I walk over, and it's Jerry Stackhouse. I say, "Hey, how are you doing, Mr. Stackhouse? How can I help you?" And he asks, I saw some flyers around town in Charleston. You guys got any openings for my kids to come to camp? Of course we do. Yeah, come on. Like we're taking everybody. Like we were trying to build that camp. So Jerry brings his kids to camp. He's currently playing for the Mavericks at the time, and they're really good. I mean, they had lost to the Heat in the finals, and they're rolling there. And he's, having a great he's playing well there, but he's one of the best players in the NBA at the time. And he brings his kids to camp, and then, that after the first day of camp, he comes and picks them up, at 4:00, and our guys are getting ready to play. And he's like, "Hey, your guys play every day at this time?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you mind if I play with your guys?" We're like, "No, come on, come play with the guys." So he would come and play, and this went on for 2 summers, the summer of 2008 and the summer of 2009. Jerry would come down with his boat and his family, and he'd hang out in the marina for a couple weeks, and he'd go hang out in the city during the day, and then he'd bring his kids to camp, and we'd have him at camp, and then he'd play with our guys, at 4:00 or 4:30 every day. And it was awesome for our guys. It was awesome for our staff to connect with him. And then so I stayed in contact with Coach Jerry through the years a little bit, not all the time, but I ended up working with one of his really good friends at Tulane. We hired one of his really good friends at Tulane, and so Jerry would come visit him, and we had a connection over those years, that when he got the Vanderbilt job, I'd spent 15 years in the Southeast. I'd been in the SEC. I think I made sense for him as far as, hey, here's a guy that's done a lot of different things in programs, from an administrative standpoint to a recruiting standpoint to a camp standpoint to a scheduling standpoint. Kind of that same message I had when I was a GA of just make yourself irreplaceable.
Right.
By making yourself irreplaceable throughout your career, you're going to develop skills. You're going to develop experience. It's going to make you valuable. And, I was valuable to Coach. So he hired me in April of 2019. And, it's been an unbelievable experience being back in the SEC.
Yeah.
And then learning under a guy like Coach Stackhouse. He's so authentic, so detailed. He has an unbelievable command with the players. There's no ability to fake it. When he says, hey, you need to get into the ball, they know he really needs you to get into the ball because he's seen it for 18 years as an NBA player himself. He's seen it as an assistant coach for the Raptors. He's seen it at the highest levels. And they all aspire to be where he's been and where he's where he's played at. So there's no faking it. And they know that. It's unbelievable to see that. It's not everybody can't coach that way, but to see him be able to teach it and how much he invests in the process of learning how to teach it great to those guys or teach it at the highest level to those guys is really special. He's a lifelong learner. We record our film sessions so he can see how he teaches. So he can see how he verbalizes teaching points to the guys, and then he watches it. He's an unbelievable, detailed guy, and I've learned so much in a year working for him. Yeah. That's really the journey. We're about to enter year 2 now. Obviously, we're really excited about the pieces we've added. Now that we've been here a year, and the growth that our young guys have had. We played a lot of we played 2 freshmen, about 40% of our available. We played freshmen, I should say, 40% of our available minutes this year. We're really excited about, those guys growing. We're really excited about the guys we've added, some guys we had sitting out. So, the future is bright here at Vanderbilt, and I'm really excited to be a part of it for Coach Stackhouse. But that's really, kind of my journey, RB. And I don't know if that, was good, but that's what it was. So.
Well, we all have a journey, and they're all different. I have never, to this day, found 2 guys and listened to their stories and said, those are exactly the same. That's never going to happen. Yeah. And that is it's really kind of cool. It's unnerving when you're young. When you go through it, you look back, and it's like the pieces make sense, that they fit together. Mm-hmm. Myself, Enrico, Ed Conroy, and Randy Norton. And you start putting, connecting all of these things. And of course, looking back, things seem to line up a lot better than when you're in the midst of it, especially when you're younger, when you're a little unsure as to whether things are going to work out or not. That's why I love sharing the stories with guests, and you, a guest, but also an SEC coach, but also a former a former RB disciple in terms of how to get into this business and what things you have to do consistently to make sure that you just don't get a job, that you build a career. And boy, if the golden rule isn't like the greatest advice of all time, because I'll tell you, for every bridge I wanted to burn coming up, I always had somebody over my shoulder saying, RB, now, I know you're mad or you're angry or this happened or that happened. It's that if you burn one bridge, it can really, really be, very damaging to your career. And it's great. I always had somebody that warned me of that. And I think I did a really good job of taking the high road. And boy, if you do in this profession, it will really, really benefit you, won't it?
Absolutely. You saying that, one of the points I jotted down was just that I've always been appreciative of all the guys I worked for. And I think that, you sometimes you talk to friends, you talk to, people that are, in coaching, and, you sometimes there's a trap to maybe criticize or maybe, just vent about maybe your experience working for somebody.
Natural. But you bet.
I've tried, and I think I've done a really good job of just trying to take the great things that I've learned from each one of those guys I've worked for. And in my kind of take would be, there's always something to take from all those guys. Each one of them gave me an opportunity. None of them had to give me an opportunity. They each did, right. Whether it was Buzz Peterson, Bruce Pearl, Ed Conroy, Eric Conkle, Jerry Stackhouse, they all gave me an opportunity
right.
when they didn't have to. And so I was just going to work as hard as I could for them. I was going to be loyal, and then I just take what I could, and understanding. And I think one thing about my career that I appreciate, but maybe it hasn't been just a straight climb, is that I've had situations where we didn't have success. I've had a situation where we couldn't get a program turned around. And again, like I said before, good coaches are still going to lose.
Oh,
there's plenty of good coaches that lose, and you got to get some breaks. And you know what? You just keep working, and someday your breaks will come. But if not, you've been bettered because of it, and you've learned from it, and you've got more tools to deal with what's going to come next. So again, appreciative of all the guys I've worked for. I try to take something from all of them, and really, like you said, there's the bridges. There's no point in burning a bridge, because you never know when it's going to come back. You never know when that contact's going to come full circle.
Yes.
And, it's how hoops works.
Right. And if there's one thing I can encourage you to do is, because I know you never forget the people that you've come in contact with that have been good to you. One of the things that gets difficult the longer you're in a profession like this is you come in contact with so many good people who are either just people you love being around, or they're part of your network, or they have helped you. I'm big on the fortunes and the follow-up. And man, I'm just going to encourage you today to just keep it really close to you, that, the reach out. The reach out to somebody that you remember at Wayne State is just priceless, when that happens to you. But if you do it and reach out and just continue to keep connections alive, and don't take anything for granted. And I know you won't, but it's just good. It's just good advice that I've heard many times through the years, and I think it's great, because we can start to get to the point where we start thinking that we had something to do with this deal, and ultimately we did. Ultimately we do. I'm kind of kidding, but at the same time, without all those people that came to our rescue, we wouldn't be where we are. So, okay, we know you're at Vandy. Tell us your role at Vandy, what you're in charge of, and what you spend your days doing.
Great. Yeah. So I'm the director of scouting and recruiting, and my job entails a lot of recruiting, organizing the recruiting for the staff, and organizing, strategic, our strategic plan. And as far as, hey, let's focus on the Southeast, and, here are the pockets where there's going to be academic minded kids that are going to value this type of experience. Mm-hmm. And, from trying to, slot, which assistant is going to, maybe mesh best in this area, or this recruit, to, hey, let's go on this kid now, because I think his recruitment's moving a little faster, versus maybe this other guy who's going to sign the spring, because they're really going to take in the process. So just trying to help interpret that for our staff, try to bring our staff together, unify them from a recruiting sense. I think Vanderbilt's a challenging place to recruit to, because you've got academics. You're very different from the other schools in your league. But I think it's an amazing place to recruit to too, because you've got academics.
Yes.
And you've got a head coach that's really distinct, and he can offer these student athletes something really special in terms of mentorship, leadership, and those type of things that, some people can't. And, I think, again, with that, Vanderbilt as a school, to get this type of education, it's not for every student athlete out there, but if we do a great job and work hard and turn over the right rocks, we're going to find kids that are going to flourish here, and they're going to get better because of the structure we've got in place from the head coach and leadership, athletic leadership on down. So I do a lot with just the recruiting organization for our staff, planning the visits, planning, elite camp, all those type of things. And then the scouting part of it, where I would spend most of my time on that is I do some scouts for us. The way Coach Stackhouse breaks up the scouts is he has one assistant coach present a majority of the scout along with himself. And then we have our assistant coaches and other staff members like myself complete, the scouts, and then get with and meet with the assistant coach that presents. So I'll get the scout ready. And then say we play on a Saturday, I would meet on Thursday and Friday with our assistant coach that presents and just get him all up to speed on that opponent. Have him have the play calls ready for him, have my thoughts ready for him on what we want to do offensively, defensively, coverage wise. And then he would present that along with coach to the team. And so I do a lot with scouting in that sense. Also, just because I've been in the Southeast, because I've been in this region, because I've got, contacts throughout the league, I'm able to lend a little bit just style of play wise. For example, this year I've played LSU because I was at La Tech, or I've played Alabama when I was at La Tech, or I've gone against Frank Martin 2 or 3 times. Just being in the region, I was able to add value to our scouting department or our scouting efforts because I had been in the league.
Sure.
And, or I'd not necessarily been in the league. I should say been in the region. I had been in the league years ago.
Yeah.
But I was just able to help us, I think, become more efficient in some areas because I'd had that experience in the SEC and in the league. Along with that, I would say just for any young coaches out there, I think one really good piece of advice to build contacts is this. When you're in a conference or a district or whatever your classification is with the teams you play, try to find guys in your league at every program or every school that you can connect with, and maybe talk with them about opponents or talk with them about play calls. Sometimes when you're, especially I think about this for young Division I assistant coaches. Sometimes you might be the director of operations, or you might be the video coordinator at a Drake or a Northern Iowa or Cal Davis. You're not going to get to meet those people on the road recruiting. Right. You're not going to be able to build your network.
Absolutely.
Recruiting. I've been a recruiting assistant and I've been an off-the-road staff member, so I've seen it both. One way you can build contacts is to make connections with all those people in your league. So if you're at Northern Iowa and you're not on the road and you're playing Southern Illinois, and you talk to that other video coordinator and say, hey, what'd you think of Illinois State? Did you get any play calls? And then you're able to maybe correspond with that assistant coach throughout the year on different things, and you have that contact. And so I've got guys like that I've known for 15 or 20 years that I used to trade scouting reports with or play calls with when I was in the Southern Conference that are now head coaches.
Sure.
And, that's a great way to build your network when maybe it's not necessarily where you're able to build it by being an on-the-road recruiter. So I think that's something that I've had a little bit of interaction with this year within our league. I know somebody on most staffs in our league, but I think it's great advice for young coaches out there that maybe aren't necessarily assistants where they're getting to see guys on the road. Here's a way where you can build contacts. Know a guy on every staff. Get to know a guy really well on every staff that you can talk opponents with and talk scouting.
That is outstanding advice. Yes. Very smart way to go about business too, and being more efficient, being on top of all the information that you're going to be able to have to be able to touch. Very good. That's awesome. Well, based on your career and based on your experience, you're the perfect fit for that position, I think, and I'm sure you are doing a fabulous job getting your other coaches ready. And I see that being a trend over the years of having layers of coaches being involved in scouts, because those games come fast.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to start from scratch and build one in a couple days. I mean, it's really quite a chore. So good. That's excellent. I want to conclude with asking you some things about. I'm going to ask you to go in the time tunnel a little bit and go back to the first time we met. But before that, we don't, Jerry is a name that most people associate as being a player, certainly. And he had spent time in the G League, I believe, working on his craft and working his way up and getting the experience. What's one thing that you take away from him every day that you're really, really impressed with?
I think it's his ability to put our players first at all times. And I've worked for a lot of guys that put the players first. I think Coach Stackhouse is at the extreme end of that. And I say that because he has no ego. He has no pressure attached in some ways to whether he wins or loses a game. He's so confident that he knows that, you know, he's going to be able to weather the storm, and he's going to be able to, you know, get through the situation. And he doesn't feel the pressure that maybe some guys that have really grinded and clawed all their way up have felt.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, he'll make a decision that's completely player first. And you know, an example would be this year we were, you know, getting ready for our first exhibition game. And you would think, you know, typically a head coach would be extremely nervous. Just hey, this is the first impression people are going to see about how I've done, you know, how we've prepared these guys. Like, how's my era gonna start? And our starting center kind of tweaks a hammy, and you know, he definitely could have played, but coach is just like, nope, sit him out. Like, not even negotiable. Just like, hey, sit him out. Like, there's no benefit in this for this kid. We need him in February. We need him in December. Like, and again, the guys I've worked for before, I'm not saying they wouldn't do the same thing, but coach is just the quickness that he has in making that decision that's player first. And I think it comes from being 18 years at the highest level, and playing. And then, you know, he's not just here to coach. He is studying his craft. And so he has such a great blend of player experience, but desire to help these guys get better as a coach. So I think that's the one thing I take away from him, is just he's going to make the decision that is in the best interest of these players. Our best player got hurt this year right after our first conference game, Aaron Naismith. He's going to go in the top 14 picks of the NBA draft. But just seeing how coach handled that situation, when he found out that Aaron got hurt, his ability to go big picture and just say, hey, no, you know, Aaron's best basketball is going to be the next 15 years of his life. And like, he didn't even blink, like, hey, let's get a second opinion. Like, it's just his unbelievable player first attitude. It's just, I admire it, but it's been the best, that just unbelievable experience to witness.
Yeah, I would think that it'd take a lot of confidence and just really, really knowing that it's a much longer process than what we see in a vacuum here on a Tuesday afternoon in the staff meeting, right? Because we tend to beat those things up for hours and try to figure them out, and they just seem to get worse than better. So what a tremendous quality that is. So, man, I could go for hours with you. We'll have to come back and revisit some of this, I'm sure. But please share with me, go back to when this was just a dream. Go back to when you had no clue how you were going to do it, but you knew that, like you said, even when you were in college, you knew you wanted to coach it. And now you had some people saying, hey, start getting advice on how to do this at the collegiate level. And you're thinking, oh, that's what I really want to do. Okay, what is it about your posture at that time that you think maybe helped or hurt you? Where I'm going with this is we can never blame someone about their philosophy or the way they look at something if they've never experienced, or we always say, well, they don't know what they don't know. Well, when you're a young coach, that's very true. Okay, but now you're coming from a place of maturity, of years and experience. And so put yourself back at that place and tell me a few things that you wish you would have accepted wholeheartedly and gone with that you maybe didn't. Or, you know, what are the things that we don't maybe do as we're young coaches that we should, as far as the process to get this thing going quickly?
That's a great question. For me, I think it's been relationships and continuing to foster those and follow up. I do an okay job of that, but I think especially when I was younger and especially when I first got into the business, I think that was the thing that I could have done a lot better job at. I think I did a great job of working. I think I did a great job of being loyal and grinding and helping the guys I've worked for. I think I helped them elevate programs as I started my career, whether it, you know, Coach Pearl for a year and then Ed at the Citadel, and even at Tulane, we elevated what we took over.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I necessarily fostered relationships is to the level I should have. And I think, there's been situations where maybe as a young assistant, I was moving so fast to work hard that I didn't spend the time, watering and nurturing the relationship of maybe a high school coach or an AAU coach, where I got to know them, but I didn't stay in contact, or I didn't, follow up with them, even though I liked them and we got along, or, there's somebody I cared about. I should have done a better job of that, or relationships with administrators that I've had over the years. Not that they're all bad, but just I could have done a much better job of that. And if I were when our young GAs that we have, our graduate assistants we have, I try to give them the message of just managing those relationships with the equipment manager, with high school coaches that come to team camp, whether the guy that brought a couple guys to elite camp, the trainer, make sure you're talking to those guys and building your network. Back to, RB, what you told me, 20 years ago, or, close to 20 years ago, 18 years ago, about relationships and the network and how much that matters, because it time and time again, it pops up, and the best in our business, typically are guys that have done just a phenomenal job, managing those, I should say, in college. But at all levels of hoops, it matters. But I could have done a better job there. I think I was blurred a little bit. Working hard had been successful for me. As a player, I had to really work to be a good player and, have success. And then I got into college coaching, and working hard worked well for me. It got me where I wanted to go. It got me as an assistant coach at 23 years old or 24 years old in Division I. It got me my start. It got me on the door into the room. But I think I could have done a better job, again, managing the relationships along that way.
Yeah. And that never stops either, does it?
Never.
So now you're saying 18 years later, it really, as that message bounces off that wall and comes back to you in the room you're in right now, it allows you to become better every day, because that's really what it is. Ultimately, when we look back on our career, or even when we look back on our life, it's never materialistic things. It's always human beings. It's always the guy that looked you in the eye and shook the hand and said it's going to be okay. Those are the things that really, really matter. Our family, our closest associates, our network, our friends, our people that we learn from. So what a great time visiting with you and getting caught up. And tell us where we can find everything to know about Andy Fox. If you would share any contact information you're okay with sharing right now, because I always, me, I'm always telling them to follow up.
Please, yeah. So my email address, you should be able to find it on the Vanderbilt site or the Vanderbilt directory, but I'm going to give it to you. It's andrew.b.fox@vanderbilt.edu. I'd encourage any aspiring coaches, young coaches earlier in their career, if there's anything I can do for you, drop me an email and we'll get in touch and exchange phone numbers, cell phones, whatever it may be, where I can help you. We've got a GA program here at Vanderbilt where, we usually bring in 2 or 3 guys a year. I know that's a foot in the door. I know where guys are when they're, early in their coaching career looking for that opportunity. If there's ever, those interests in anybody, Coach RB, that you come in contact with, again, email is andrew.b.fox@vanderbilt.edu. I get some of my greatest pleasure, RB, from helping our GAs, move along, and that comes from time with you and time with those that have helped me get into coaching.
Yeah. Pass it on, brother. Pass it on.
You betcha. We just had two of our former GAs got head coaching jobs, this spring. Casey Wiley at Olney and Hunter Jenkins at Clarendon, both junior college head coaches, both
fantastic
guys that for us at Louisiana Tech. So I know we all need breaks. We all need them. We all need someone to give us a shot. Guys gave me shots, and I'm so appreciative of those guys. Guys helped me build my plan to get a shot, like yourself, and many others. So very appreciative of that. And please, anybody that is interested, please reach out and let me know how I can help them, in the coaching business.
Well, great catching up. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is Andy Fox, and keep an eye on Andy Fox and keep an eye on the Vanderbilt program. I truly think that we got some pretty special things coming. Last thing I was going to ask you, the first time you coached at Vanderbilt, how in the world did you remember to go to the baseline? That is the most confounding thing to me I've ever seen.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And so
my gosh.
I was a GA in 2004 through 2005, 2006. And so I remember that even then.
Yeah.
And it was, preparation back then where we would, practice and when I was at Tennessee, and we'd move the chairs to the baseline just to get ready for it. And,
right.
So coming back to it this year, I felt like I had a little bit of a cliff notes on how it was going to go. But what's pretty neat and what's good is they even though the benches are on the baseline. Now this wasn't always like this, but probably 2 or 3 years ago, SEC coaches approved. They moved the coaching box to the natural coaching box point. So like Coach Stackhouse can come down the sideline.
Yes.
Naturally, like and the opposing coach as well
Just
can come
makes
down the
sense.
sideline.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. But up until 3 or 4 years ago before they changed that, it was definitely different for him because the coach's box was near that bench area. But what is different is, you come out of the game and maybe the coach is in the natural coaching box point, and maybe he comes out and it's hard for him to message with that guy, or it's hard for him to message on the bench. Maybe something happens that he sees during the game. Hey, this is how they're guarding something. And normally you can turn behind you on the bench and say, hey, be on the lookout for, X.
Yes.
You can't really do that. And so, you got to use your timeouts. You got to use, your staff's got to be efficient. And it's different. It's different for the opposing coach. It's different for the home team as well.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, at Vanderbilt, the benches are on the baseline, not the sideline. It is one of the real interesting anomalies in college basketball. Is there anybody else in the country that does that you know of?
Not that I know of.
I don't think there is.
The closest floor you might be able to compare it to is actually Williams Arena, the barn in Minnesota. Because their floor is lowered like ours. Our floor is just like that. It's lowered, and that's why they have the seats on the baseline, is because if you had your seats on the sideline, it would obstruct the view.
Correct.
So I guess we could go and put our seats, kind of like Minnesota does, but Vanderbilt's done it for years. There's been
don't change it now, baby.
Bunch of memorial magic, some great moments here, and they're not going to change it. They've got a great fan base that is really proud of that tradition, and it's a fun thing.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Andy Fox, and we'll be watching your team and watching your progress. Thanks for your time.
RB, I really appreciate you, and thank you.
Thanks, bud.
I really appreciate those of you that stuck around until the end of the episode. If you feel like you've gained some knowledge during this, please subscribe and share this podcast with anyone that you think would benefit. I've attached all documents and contact information in the show notes below. Check back in next Thursday for the next episode.